I formation now. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the end. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown official! Calvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
And welcome back to another episode of The Lateral Live. I am Mike Settle. Normally I have my co-host, Dustin Franklin. He's feeling a little under the weather again this week, so hopefully he'll be back next week. Tried to put a show intro. Hopefully it wasn't too buggy. But again, show business, kind of trying. I'm still trying to figure this thing out. Last week I had guest host TJ Pettinger on. Again, prior obligations for him. So this is just going to be me, a little solo dolo action. And I'm okay with that. We're going to make it work. You won't have to hear me talk as long, so that's good. So normally we start this thing with news. Haven't been a lot of news in the world of college football this week, which is probably a good thing because we can actually talk about the football. Last week was a really, really big week. I think what we discovered is in college football, there's no one that's really, really good. There's no one that's great. I think that's good for the sport. I've talked a million times about just how monotonous this thing has become. And it's, Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama, and then everybody else, throw in an Oklahoma and a Notre Dame occasionally. But none of those teams look dominant. And I think that's really good. Now, of course, one of those teams could become dominant towards the end of the season as things progress, players get healthy, things get right. But as of right now, there's a big time hole for college football to for someone to step up and be the team. And I don't think we have that this year. Just for starters, let's go down to Gainesville last week. Bama on the road at the Swamp. Florida acquitted themselves nicely, much nicer than I think most people expect, or at least I certainly did. Their defense played maybe their best game under Todd Grantham in his entire tenure there. I think Dan Mullen called a fantastic game for the most part, except the 2-point conversion, which I don't quite get that play call. I thought Emory Jones acquitted himself nicely as well. And, what's funny is I think a lot of people thought if Anthony Richardson didn't play, Florida didn't have a chance to win. I don't think that was true. And they're right there knocking on the door. If they hadn't let Alabama get out to such an egregious lead, Florida's looking at a win there. And, I talked about last week, if Florida wanted to win that game, they had to shorten the game, and they had to play defense, and they did. They need to, going forward, they need to use both quarterbacks. I think that's very, very important as well. But we'll get to that when it comes to the Tennessee game this week. But great game in the Swamp, great atmosphere. The place had come alive, and if Dan Mullen wants to start maybe doing a little better on the recruiting side, this is what he has to get going. He has to keep the atmosphere. He's got to keep close in these games. Now, at some point, Florida has to win one of these games. But I do think good for them, good for Dan, but Alabama still won the game, and I think that kind of shows how really good Alabama is with a new quarterback on the road for the first time. I think Alabama getting the win there is a good thing. Okay, so a couple other teams, I mentioned Oklahoma off the top. Nebraska, Oklahoma, tight game, much closer than anyone expected. Nebraska was left for dead after the week 1 contest or week 0 contest against Illinois, losing that game. Their defense stepped up, played well, but I think the really bigger story here is Oklahoma. That offense looks dysfunctional. It looks disorganized. I think I was a little too high on Spencer Rattler. So this offense normally is predicated on the offensive line play. And so far, there's no good offensive line play. Like, if you really go look at the way they couldn't push they couldn't push Tulane off the ball. They couldn't do a lot of stuff. And in that Nebraska game, the Nebraska defensive line was a really big issue for them, which, again, Nebraska's had a good defensive line all season, but it was really interesting to just see the lack of depth and play from that Oklahoma offensive line. I expect them to get a little better as the season goes on, but they have a big game tonight. It's at home, luckily for them. If they were going on the road to West Virginia, I would not be in favor of them. But at home, at night, could turn the tide for them. But, we talked about Miami last week. Look, here's the deal. Miami was promising recruits and fans that they were going to come into this season and be something that they haven't been so far. Michigan State went down there and especially in the fourth quarter, just punched them in the mouth. And Miami did not respond. It's almost like they got knocked down against Alabama and haven't gotten back up since. And to me, that's not good. That's not good for Manny Diaz and that staff's future there, especially when there's some hot coaches coming up that, would probably do a better job at coaching that team. Now, look, everything they can do is still in front of them. They can still win the ACC Coastal. It wasn't ever going to be an undefeated season with Alabama on the schedule in the first place. But I think the Michigan State game is one you have to win, and they're right there in the game, and the offense just looks dysfunctional, discombobulated under De'Aaron King. He doesn't look healthy, and he won't be playing this week anyway. And so I think, it'll be a good time for them to get a win under their belt before they start, big-time conference play next week. I think they play Friday night. But that was interesting. Michigan State's the real story there, though. 3-0 under Mel Tucker in his second year. Just a really good – golly, they're fun to watch. They run the piss out of the ball. They play really good defense, especially up front. And now they're going to struggle a little bit as the season goes on. I think, they're kind of playing above their head. But right now, it's really hard not to have Michigan State with, two really good wins, Northwestern and Miami. At least I think so. Virginia Tech, West Virginia was a close game last week. Good win for West Virginia, a ranked Virginia Tech team. They went and hosted them, knocked them out. Good for them. Talked to Notre Dame is an interesting case because I don't know how good or bad Notre Dame is. You watch them in the Florida State game. What does that actually say about them now looking back? I'm not sure. They struggled against Toledo. They didn't look good against Purdue last week. But guess what? They're 3-0. They have a really big game today. They can really kind of show what they're about here today. Colorado, we're going to save it for when we get to Texas A&M. But Colorado just looks not as good as I was hoping. But yeah, here's the thing. Is Penn State really, really good? They have two of the best wins in the country. They have the win against Wisconsin on the road opening week. That's a tough game, especially just, home field matters in college football. And I think that was a really big win for them to get. So Penn State to me is in my top 4 or 5 teams. Like they have two of the best wins. And I have no problem saying right now they're, my favorite to win the Big Ten. Now, of course, Ohio State's still standing there, but we talked about Ohio State, and they struggled. They struggled to put away Tulsa last week. That was a really sloppy game on both sides of the ball for them. Obviously, their defense has issues. CJ Stroud won't play today against Akron. I think I could play quarterback for Ohio State and beat Akron today. So no worries there. But, Clemson, same thing. Struggled to beat Georgia Tech. I actually had a chance to lose that game. Got a little bit lucky there at the end. The lightning delay made it really dysfunctional. Didn't, both teams sat for over an hour. It just wasn't a good thing. And then you had, just some rookie. I won't say rookie because he's a second-year player, but he has some rookie mistakes from the quarterback. DJ, look, they're not, so they didn't go 3 for 3, and they're, big-time quarterback. Look, they had Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and when that's the bar, anything below that bar is not good. And so I think he'll be okay. I just think he's not an all-generational talent like these other two. And so I think people have to just kind of be a little patient with him. I think he'll get it. They'll put something together today, but they have a really, really tough game on the road. And then their defense still hasn't allowed a touchdown. So I don't know how anyone can pick against them at the moment because, again, they haven't given up a single touchdown. So that's really, really impressive. Before we get into this week's games, I just wanted to talk about, the state of the sport. Everyone looks just okay. There is no dominant football team this year, and I think that's great for the sport. Now, we could talk about Florida State, but I feel like we did that last week. Florida State's not good. I don't know how much I could beat that dead horse. This past week, they didn't look – not only were they not good, they were not the better team against Wake Forest. Wake Forest has a better roster. They're more prepared. They're better coached, and that's the state of the program right now. We'll save the Florida State talk for when we get to the Louisville game. But, look, everyone's asked me all week. I don't know what you want me to do. All I can do is hope that they do well. But, yeah, man, that was last week in college football. Let's transition into this week. Big-time games, man. Coming up, here we go. Notre Dame, Wisconsin, 12 o'clock, Fox, taking place at Soldier Field where the Chicago Bears play. This game was canceled last year due to COVID, but it's supposed to be at Lambeau, so kind of a pseudo home and home there. This is the Jack Cohn Bowl. Jack Cohn's the quarterback at Notre Dame. He transferred from Wisconsin. They kind of pushed him out the door for Graham Mertz. I think it's worked out better for Jack Cohn so far. We'll see today. The Notre Dame run defense is pathetic. It's pitiful. They're something like 105th in the country at stopping the run, which is the complete opposite of what Notre Dame was last year. That is, 115th. That is not good. And their offense on that side of the ball, they're 115th in running offense. So they're getting away from their identity. Their offensive line looks a little shaky, even after getting Kane Madden, the transfer, that everybody wanted. Looks a little shaky. They're going to have to throw the ball to win this game because I think Wisconsin will load the box and try to stop that run because they're really good at that. That's what they do. We don't really know anything about this Wisconsin team yet. They have one game against a really good Penn State team. They almost won that game at home, so that's their lone loss. Today would be a good prove-it game for both of these teams. I think both with a win could really kind of signify their place. If Wisconsin loses this game, again, things are still in front of them. They could still win the Big Ten West. Notre Dame, they're 3-0, but they don't look very good at all. They're like a team that lost a lot of talent, which they did. And so, but I think Notre Dame has more weapons as far as skill player and tight end, which I can't believe I'm saying. Their defense has to step up and play a little bit better. Luckily for them, Wisconsin doesn't do anything crazy on offense, so you can kind of, play safe against Wisconsin. Give me Notre Dame. That's a pseudo home game for them. There's a lot of Notre Dame fans in Chicago. It's right down the road. I like Notre Dame to win the football game. Pretty close, though. I think it'll be a boring, typical Big Ten slog, even though that Notre Dame's not in the Big Ten. Give me Notre Dame to win that game. Texas Tech at Texas, 12 o'clock, ABC. This is a fun rivalry game. Each of the last 6 has come down to a touchdown or less. Really, really fun. Big game for Texas Tech. Matt Wells, their coach, on the hot seat. Coming into this season, rightfully so. Hasn't done a whole lot there, but they're staring at 3-0. They have their rival right in front of them. This is a bigger game for Texas to me. Steve Sarkisian got blown out against Arkansas after a really good week 1 showing against Louisiana Lafayette. Can they bounce back? This is a Power 5 opponent. They're rival. They're hosting. It's a really big spot for Steve Sarkisian to kind of show, okay, Arkansas, we're not quite there yet, but we could still compete here in the Big 12. Bijan Robinson is a stud at running back. He's going against one of the worst rushing defenses in the country in Texas Tech. Not very good at all. The only thing that Texas Tech does good on defense is create turnovers. That's a little bit of luck. We've talked about that before. Texas Tech's going to have to get the ball to its weapons. I like the Texas defense a little bit more. I'm just not very high on the Texas Tech team until they actually win a game convincingly, and they haven't done that yet. So give me Texas. It's really hard to pick Texas after being so high on them and then Arkansas kind of shutting them down. But I like the Longhorns here in this spot to win and cover that spread, which I don't have in front of me. That's bad prep by me. Okay, here's an anxiety game. LSU on the road at Mississippi State. LSU lost this game last year. Opening game, coming off a national championship. They were expected to win that game, and KJ Costello and that offense of Mississippi State threw the ball all over them. It was not what people expected. Bo Pelini out as the DC. They blamed him. They blamed all their problems on Bo Pelini. He's the one holding us back. That OC is the one that's holding us back. And they go out to LA and get their doors blown off by UCLA, a team that lost last week to Fresno State. So who are you, LSU? This is really a game that Coach Orgeron has to win. We're looking at a Gene Chizik situation. If he doesn't start to collect some wins, and they have one of the toughest stretches of games in the country coming up, starting with today. Mississippi State got a little unlucky last week against Memphis. The refs kind of screwed that up. If the refs didn't screw it up, they're undefeated. Whether they have to come back and win all those games is kind of irrelevant because they would be looking at 3-0 hosting LSU, a team that just beat last year. I actually like Will Rogers, the quarterback at Mississippi State. He does just enough well. This offense isn't fully functioning like Mike Leach wants it to. It's going to take some time. He's got to get some talent in there that can run the air raid a little bit more efficiently. But I actually like what they put together so far. They have some explosive playmakers. I think Mike Leach will coach up in this game. As far as LSU goes, I like Mac Johnson. I just think this team would be better with Miles Brennan at quarterback. That's unfortunate. Still young, still kind of getting his feet up underneath him. I don't know what this LSU offense is, what it does well. It doesn't do anything particularly great. And so hopefully today they're able to run the ball a little bit, kind go off of play action, big plays downfield. I didn't see that from the UCLA game. I think they thought they could go into that game very vanilla. They're going to have to get creative to score points, especially today. This was a tough pick for me. I'm going to take LSU to win on the road. I'm giving them my faith one more time because I don't trust this Mississippi State team at all, especially under Mike Leach. But it would not surprise me if Mississippi State won this game. I think it's an interesting game, a really good spot for look, this SEC West is stacked, and we're going to talk about it. There's not a bad team in this league to me, or in this division. So this will kind of, this could be for 5th, 6th place and still be two pretty good football teams. So really, really, really tough game for Coach O. He's going to, he's got a couple of those coming up. He's going to have to be careful. Some rapid fire in the noon slate. Missouri at Boston College, 12 o'clock, ESPN2. I would take BC if they had Phil Jurkovec. They don't. He's out for the season, their quarterback. So, and their defense is one of the worst in the country. Give me Missouri. I like what Elijah Durkowitz has done there. So I will take Missouri. SMU at TCU, 12 o'clock on FS1. This game's the Iron Skillet. It's a rivalry game. It's a fun game. I always like to watch it. Normally they play it on Friday, so I'm kind of curious why they're playing it on Saturday. But make no mistake about it, I actually like SMU to win this game. I know they got a little lucky last week with the Hail Mary, but I don't know enough about TCU to kind of pick them in any situation. A little unpredictable. So give me what I know best, and that is SMU. Be Boise State at Utah State, 12 CBS. This is kind of a weird game. So this is like a 9 o'clock kick, local time. Tough game to get up for, body clock and all that stuff. I actually like Utah State. I like Boise. I think they're a pretty good team, but so far I've really been impressed with what Blake Anderson has done at Utah State. So give me the Aggies. Washington State at Utah. Now, I don't like this Utah team. I was high on them in the preseason. They've shown me absolutely nothing. I don't know what it's 2:30 on the Pac-12 network. Very difficult spot for both teams. Both need a win. Nick Rolovich needs a win at Washington State. I'm still going to take Utah, though. It's at home, tough place to play. So give me the Utes there. Okay, 3:30 to 6:30. This is a window that's pretty much stacked with a lot of good football games. And so I think if you need a window of opportunity to get some errands done, some grocery shopping, a nap even, kind of recover from last night if you were one of those people, I think the noon window is kind of your ticket there, because at 3:30 is when things really get amped up. Texas A&M, Arkansas. This game takes place in Jerry's World, where the Cowboys play. Big stadium, a lot of people there. This is a conference game that takes place at a neutral site, which I'm not a huge fan of. But again, it creates a very unique atmosphere. These games have been absolutely wild the last 6-7 years. Arkansas had no business being on the field with A&M, a couple of those, and they almost won those games. This is a big game for both staffs. Sam Pittman gets a big win against Texas. They beat Georgia Southern last week. Normally, that's a game that Arkansas would struggle in. They didn't struggle at all. They put away Georgia Southern with ease. And so when you're looking at what comes next for both of these staffs, Jimbo Fisher, without his starting quarterback, has not that offense has struggled. It has not looked very, very good at all. They struggled to beat Colorado, who just got their doors blown up by Minnesota last week. Look, this is a statement game. If this is the game that A&M has to win if they want to compete with the Alabamas and even the Floridas of the world right now, and Georgia, like, they've got to win these kind of games. And Sam Pittman has Arkansas humming. They're a lot of fun to watch. I love them on offense. They play tough, nasty defense. Man, they're just, this is an old Southwest Conference game. They've been longtime rivals. They've been, playing annually again ever since, A&M joined the SEC. So, but A&M's won 9 straight. They've really come lucky and close to lose. It's been a little shaky there. I like KJ Jefferson versus this A&M defense. He's just mobile enough. He has a big arm, gets the ball downfield. I like the Kendall Browse offense and what he's been able to put together there at Arkansas. To me, this is about the A&M defense and Mike Elko. Can they make enough stops to give their offense short field a chance to win the game? If A&M was at full strength with their quarterback, I like Texas A&M in this game. But what I've seen out of Arkansas, I've just seen more. I like what I've seen. And I'm going to take the Razorbacks to win outright on the road. Or, it's a neutral site, but it's on the road. One's in Texas, one's in Arkansas. Give me the Razorbacks. And, look, I'm high on this A&M team, but without their starting quarterback, they look really, really bad on the offensive side of the football. So give me Arkansas. That should, by the way, if you don't watch any other game all day, be sure to tune into that game, 3:30 CBS. That is a lot of fun. Okay. Clemson at North Carolina State. We don't know what the hell Clemson is. We have no idea. The only thing we know is they play really good defense. That makes me kind of question the Georgia offense a little bit because, Georgia Tech moved the ball up and down the field on them too. And so we don't know what Clemson is. NC State is banged up. They lost Cyrus Fagan, safety for the year. They lost a couple other people for the season. NC State's a tough place to play. Florida State, that's a lot of time before their season went to die at Carter Finley, when Florida State was actually good in Florida State. So North Carolina State is just inconsistent under Dave Doran. They look really good some weeks, and then some weeks they just look like they don't belong on the field. It's very strange. The Mississippi State game, which I expected them to roll in, they lost and didn't look very competitive at all. I don't know, where can we get some consistency in Raleigh? I don't know. I really like the NC State defensive line versus Clemson's offensive line. That Clemson O-line is pretty bad, or it's average for what a program of their caliber should have. And I think NC State can win that trench battle. The offense has only scored 17 total points. NC State has lost 8 in a row to Clemson. This is a rivalry game. They play for the Textile Bowl. The schools are close enough to each other. They've lost 15 of the last 16 against Clemson. I don't know if this is the day that they kind of spring up and get a big win. It almost seems like Clemson is either going to make a move here and decide to be better on offense, or this is going to go the other way. And NC State gets a big statement win as far as in the ACC Atlantic race. I have a really hard time picking NC State after they burned me against Mississippi State. I'm going to take the proven commodity. I'm going to take Clemson on the road. Again, tough place to play. That place is going to be loud for this game. It's going to be really hard for that offense to communicate. I think Tony Elliott, the OC at Clemson, does just enough, kind of schemes up some stuff. I like the Tigers, but would not shock me one bit if NC State ends up winning this football game. So really fun game. Another game you should watch at 3:30. Iowa State at Baylor, 3:30 on Fox. Why do I have this game? Well, simple. Baylor's undefeated. A team that no one thought would be undefeated coming into this spot. And last week, Iowa State exercised some demons by putting the beat down on UNLV. Now, look, Baylor's 3-0, but they don't look very good. But they're 3-0, and this is a must-win game for Iowa State. If you're Matt Campbell, this is a game you cannot go on the road and lose. A team that I think you're better than, you're more talented than. But make no mistake, Abram Smith, running back at Baylor, they run the heck out of the ball. He looks really good. He has 300-yard games in his first 3 games. Bryce Hall versus the run defense of Baylor shouldn't be an issue. They should be able to get the ground game going. This isn't Iowa, so I like Iowa State in that matchup. Purdy is 19-7 in the Big 12. Both of these teams have stout defenses. I'm going to take what I know. I'm going to take the proven commodity. Give me Iowa State on the road. This should be a fun game, though. This is a big test for Baylor. Are they for real in the Big 12 race, or are they a pretender at 3-0? I really, really interested in locking in on this game and seeing what they're all about. So give me Iowa State, but I just don't know enough about Baylor to feel confident picking them. Okay, Rutgers at Michigan, 3:30 ABC. Look, who in the world would have thought this game would be important, especially with Rutgers involved? But Michigan so far in this season looks to be really, really good. Now, I want to pause the brakes, or I want to pump the brakes just a little bit, because we've seen this before. We've seen Michigan start the season on a lot of expectations, and they look really good through 3 or 4 weeks, and then something bad happens, and the wheels fall off. This is a good Rutgers team. It's not great. They're not quite where Greg Schiano wants them to be. But I think there's a matchup issue here for Rutgers. Now, last year they played a crazy overtime game, high scoring. I expect that to be a little bit different this year. Now Rutgers off the field has recruiting momentum. They look really good in that field, but they haven't beaten a ranked team since 2009, and that was number 23 South Florida. Boy, how times have changed. That's a long time ago. Michigan has the number 1 rushing offense in the country, and they look good doing it. Their offensive line moves people off the ball. This is probably their toughest test, though, as far as in the trenches. They're also and Rutgers is the least penalized team in the nation. Give me Michigan. I like the Wolverines to win this game at home. Big atmosphere. K. McNamara is really, really good, or he's good compared to some of these other Michigan quarterbacks that they've kind of had to plug and play a little bit. I like his arm. I like the way he takes some shots downfield. This looks like a Michigan team that's kind of primed for something a little bit more than the last few years. Give me the Wolverines to win, but it wouldn't shock me if this were a close, kind of wild game. I hope it is. And again, a big time game in the Big Ten. Both teams undefeated. Some rapid fire games here in that time slot. UTSA goes on the road at Memphis. Memphis gets a little lucky last week. I actually really like this UTSA team. It's unfortunate that their coach comes in, turns it around. He's probably going to leave for one of the bigger jobs. Texas Tech may be open. TCU may be open, so he'll have his choice there. I actually like UTSA to win on the road at Memphis. I think Memphis got a little bit lucky last week against Mississippi State. UTSA just looks like a really good football team. Fun game, 3:30 ESPNU if you're into watching a little group of 5 action. Louisville at Florida State, 3:30 ESPN2. I don't know what to make of this game. We saw Louisville against Ole Miss. They look terrible. We've seen Florida State against Jacksonville State and Wake Forest. They look terrible. But Louisville getting a little bit of life last week against UCF. Now, I'm not sure how good that UCF team is, but I don't want to downplay the importance of getting a win, getting a little confidence, gaining some momentum from Malik Cunningham, the quarterback at Louisville. Looks pretty good. I like Louisville on the road. I just can't have any more confidence in picking Florida State after last week. Now, Wake looked really good last night, and I think that could be one of the stories of the season is Wake may be a really, really good football team, but I just trust Louisville more. I don't know why, because they're not in a much better position than Florida State, but they do have a win. Florida State doesn't. This should be a big win for Mike Norvell and company. Don't go into this game thinking it doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters a lot, especially with a lot of recruiting momentum on the line. I'm still going to take the Cardinals, though. I just can't trust myself to pick Florida State. Kansas at Duke. No, this isn't this is not basketball season. Kansas and Duke are playing a football game. These two teams are really, really bad, but I put it on here because not basketball season yet. 3:30 ACC Network. I don't know what to think of this game. I'm just going to ride with Kansas because I like him more in football. That's just where I'm going to be. Okay. UCLA at Stanford, 6:30 Pac-12 Network. Stanford looks so much better than they did in week 1 against Kansas State. I don't know where this Stanford team has come from, but good for them. UCLA kind of let me down last week. They played a really good Fresno team, but man, that was stunning to see. Crazy game, awesome game. Most of you probably weren't awake to watch it. That's okay. Give me UCLA on the road, though. I think they kind of bounce back, move Stanford's defensive line off the ball with those big offensive linemen. I think Chip Kelly gets a win. He's still it. Everything they want to do is still in front of them. Pac-12 is still attainable. Big game in a couple weeks against Oregon. So give me the Bruins to win that game. All right, last time slot of the day, 7:30 to 11:30. Tennessee at Florida. This is 7 o'clock ESPN. Look, Florida's a better team here by a significant amount. Close loss to Bama last week. Can they rebound quickly? Because this is a game you can't sleep on, though. Robbery, emotions, all the very cliche stuff you hear. I think they can. I think this is a different situation. That loss almost feels like a win in a weird way. It's not, no moral victories, but that almost feels like you're inching closer to something bigger. Can't take your eye off the ball, though. You have to go in and take care of Tennessee like you're supposed to. I really like this offense, the way they run the ball. They're the opposite of last year, where they couldn't run. I mean, they couldn't run the ball to save their life last year. Now Pierce is a beast at running back. I love the way he runs. He runs hard. He runs over. He runs around. Really, really good. They're going to use both quarterbacks today. I believe Anthony Richardson will play. And not that they're going to need him, but I think it certainly helps because Tennessee has to prep for both quarterbacks, and that's tough. Improved defense. Tennessee has bad quarterback play from Joe Milton. I think that's a rough situation there. Tennessee has to show a pulse. I don't think they have to win this game, but if you're going and looking at the trajectory of the program under Josh Heupel, show a pulse, show some life. You almost beat Pitt, even though I think Pitt not as good as we thought since they lost last week at home to Western Michigan. But can you show a pulse, show some life? I think they can. But I just think Florida is too talented, too good, pulls away. Give me the Gators to win. I think that Florida will expose that Tennessee secondary for what it is. Here's the only other game. The only other big-time game during this time slot. West Virginia on the road at Oklahoma. I talked about it earlier. This is a prime spot for West Virginia to pull an upset. I really like what I've seen. They're easily 2 plays away from being undefeated. The Maryland game kind of got away from them, but Maryland's a good football team, as we've seen. West Virginia, I think, plays really good defense in certain situations. They're not quite where Neil Brown wants them to be, but I think, as far as stopping the run, they kind of bottle up, big time runs now. Through the air, there's some work to be done. I think Oklahoma can kind of expose their secondary a little bit. As far as offensively, I like what West Virginia's put together. They get big plays down the field, and that's not something we normally see from a Neil Brown team, but they have some explosive playmakers. I like what West Virginia's putting together there. Oklahoma, I'm just so unsure about because I know the talent is there, but something's just not quite clicking. I don't know if that's Spencer Rattler. He may want to kind of step up and play because there's a 5-star quarterback sitting right there behind him that we know can probably play. And so it's not quite his job to lose anymore. He's kind of playing for his role on this team, I feel. We know what Spencer Rattler is now. He's big play. He's boom or bust. He turns the ball over. And that's not good for Oklahoma. The offensive line should hopefully improve week by week as they kind of come together, but they're not as talented as they have been. They just went from being the best offensive line in the country, so anything outside of that is a little bit of a step down, which I think has happened here. They struggled versus Nebraska. I think they'll do a little bit better today. I just don't quite think that Oklahoma is where we thought they would be. With that being said, I'm going to take the Mountaineers on the road to pull the upset against Oklahoma. I haven't seen anything out of Oklahoma that makes me think they can go in and win a statement game. They got lucky against Tulane. They got lucky against Nebraska. I don't want to say lucky, but they could have easily lost both of those games. I think this West Virginia team is too good to kind of sleep on. Maybe they don't sleep on them. Maybe they take them seriously. I'm not sure. But I like West Virginia on the road to get a big upset win, and really good job by Neil Brown because he inherited a mess. So if that does happen, that would be a huge win for that program. All right, here's some rapid fire, and then I'll get you out of here. Nebraska, Michigan State, 7 o'clock, FS1. Nebraska needs a win, a big win. Now, they strung together wins against Fordham and Buffalo, looked really good against Oklahoma, but they got to go on the road to play one of the hottest teams in the country. I like Michigan State to win the game. I still think Nebraska competes, and that's something as a fan base that Nebraska should hold on to and build because I don't think they're getting rid of Scott Frost. They're going to ride or die with him regardless. Give me Michigan State. I really like what they've done. Just looking at that schedule, I could easily see Michigan State going undefeated into that Michigan game. That's going to be scary times there for that for that in-state battle. Kentucky at South Carolina, 7 o'clock, SEC Network. Give me Kentucky. South Carolina looks really bad. They should have lost to East Carolina. Kentucky, while their defense is a little bad, I really like the way they run the ball. They have a baller quarterback. So fun offense to watch. Not as fun on defense as they normally are, but give me the Wildcats. Kansas State, Oklahoma State, 7 o'clock, ESPN Plus. Had this game on here because I'm really intrigued by Kansas State. This looks like one of those revenge tours for the Wildcats. They look really, really good. Have potential to win the Big 12 now. Just kind of seeing give me Kansas State. I like what they put away Nevada last week. That's a good Nevada team. Don't sleep on that win. I haven't seen anything out of Oklahoma State that I really like. So give me the Wildcats to win the game. North Carolina at Georgia Tech, 7:30, ACC Network. North Carolina, I don't know what to make of them yet, but I think the Georgia Tech kind of played up last week. I don't think they're very good. They lost to an average Northern Illinois team at home week 1. Now, week 1, we could kind of toss out a little bit as we've seen, the season go on, but give me North Carolina to win the game on the road, but it wouldn't surprise me if this game was a little close, third, fourth quarter. If Georgia Tech wins this game, there's some bigger problems there in Chapel Hill. I'll take the Tar Heels to win outright. Okay, Colorado at Arizona State, 10:30 ESPNU. Arizona State went from ranked to not looking very good at all. I don't know what happened. Colorado, same thing. They looked flat against Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota really put it on them last week, and that was a game I think they were kind of hoping to win to kind of show, okay, this is not a one-year flash in the pan last year. This looks more like a one-year flash in the pan. Still like what they're doing there, building something nice, but I think they're a little ways away. Pac-12 game. I'm still going to take Colorado because I like their defense more. Arizona State has all kinds of playmakers, and that staff has no idea what to do with them. Very, very strange to me. Okay, hey, shorter show today. I was by myself. I did a lot of talking. I really appreciate everyone that tuned in. I know it was kind of last minute. I had some mess ups with the intro, but I really do I appreciate everyone joining me today. You can join us every Saturday, 9:15. I believe Brother Dustin will be back next week. So you'll get the witty banner that if you missed it, you'll get it next week. Big week of college football to me. 3:30 time slot is absolutely loaded. Again, we appreciate you joining along. We're here every Saturday morning on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and our podcast is The Lateral, History and Future of College Football. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week.
This is The Lateral.
Oh, the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone. He's going to go out of bounds. The Bears have won. And the kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history. 17 seconds, high formation now. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the end. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown FSU! Kelvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown!